Back for another brew day. This time our first with a guest brewer. So we're very lucky and thankful for Dan Stockwell to be joining us today. He's going to be running us through his Cherry Ripe Stout recipe. So Dan runs a home brew club called Northern Brewers Home Brew Club. Fantastic brew club. They meet once a month. There's a wide range of experience from seasoned veterans to kind of people that haven't brewed before and looking to get into it. Everyone's super friendly, great bunch of guys.
A lot of experienced brewers.
A lot of experience and very open and friendly and willing to share knowledge. So if you're a new brewer, if you're thinking about brewing, if you're experienced home brewer and you're not aware of these guys, check out their Facebook page. Send Dan a message. I'm sure you can kind of join. You can pop along and just and see what it's all about, or you can join up. So Dan Stockwell, aside from running the brew club, he's a fantastic brewer, and he's just won a couple of awards from the recent WA comp, right?
So I got the notes here. So he got the third place in the Amber and Dark Ale with his Dunkelbock beer. He got first and second place for the Brown Ale category with the Brown Ale and a Scottish Ale, if I'm not wrong. He got the third place in the Stout category with the Sweet Stout, and he got the third place in the Special IPA,
which is a NEPA.
I
tasted this beforehand. Before we got it was fantastic.
Very hard categories. He didn't share any of these beers in this video, but we're gonna chase him for one of those. So today we're gonna be talking to him, and he's gonna be sharing the
Cherry Ripe Stout. So we're super excited about that, and he's just about to join us now. And thanks, Dan, for your time. Thanks for the recipe, and thanks for the beer. Thanks very much for joining us today, Dan. Appreciate your time, and congratulations on all the medals and obviously the upcoming additions, the twins. Congratulations, mate.
Congratulations, then.
Thanks guys. Thanks for having me.
So it's appreciate you joining. As I've said, I mean, this is the first time we've done a guest kind of a brewer. So appreciate your patience with the format. But before we get started running through the inspiration and the recipe and the brew day, if there's any brewers out there that if you've got a recipe that you're particularly proud of, if you've won an award, or if you'd like to kind of share the recipe with the group, get in touch with us. We've got lots of different formats we can propose, kind of similar to what we're doing here with Dan. But we can just run through the recipe and do a tasting and so on. So without further ado, let's get into this. So Cherry Ripe Stout. It sounds fantastic, 5.8%. Before we get running through the actual recipe, can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for this beer, Dan?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a smash together of a few different beers I've brewed. I've got a milk stout recipe that I've been working on for probably 3 years now. I've brewed probably about 5 or 6 times, and I also did that Imperial Cherry Ripe thing about a year ago that you've had as well.
Yep.
And that was sort of the first time I used the cherries and that sort of thing in the beer. So it's basically combining the knowledge that I got from that cherry stout, which I used 4 kilos of sour cherries, which was way too much, and then dialing that back and combining it with my normal milk stout recipe, and then coming to sort of a good place there.
Fantastic. So is this much like every kind of home brew, right? There's always version 2, version 3. Are you happy with what you've got here?
Yeah, this is version 1 of this. Like I said, like version 6 or something of my milk stout, and I've done different adjunct variations and stuff to that in the past. But yeah, pretty happy with the balance of the cherry and the coconut, and yeah, pretty happy with how this has played out.
Have you had any commercial beers similar to that one that gave you a bit of inspiration as well, or? Yeah,
there's a few. Nowhere Man did a Cherry Ripe Porter not that long ago. It was probably a couple of years back now, actually, and that was fantastic. I think I had the Clare Valley one. That wasn't that great.
I think Boston has a cherry dark beer as well.
Cherry Porter, in the big bottles. No, I haven't had that. I think that's a barrel aged version. I think that's a sort of like a sour stout.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. I mean, yep. So go ahead.
Yeah, that Nowhere Man one is probably the one that sticks in my mind.
Fantastic. So I'm super excited to give this a try. So like every kind of recipe run through, we're going to kind of run through the fermentables and the hops and the yeast, water profiles, etc. So we have the recipe in front of us, Dan. So can you run us through the fermentables, the malt selection and the reasoning behind it?
Yeah. Starting from the top. So Barrett versus Power Malt, just a normal sort of base malt. I would have liked to have used something a bit more characterful, like Minnesota or Golden Promise or something like that. But I try and stick to one base, get whatever's cheap, and then add spec malts and stuff to sort of make up the character that you're missing out on, I guess. So that's the Munich a bit further down. So add a bit of Munich to give you some of that bready, toasty character that you would get out of something like a Minnesota. Flaked oats, it's more for body and mouthfeel. Light chocolate, the Gladfield spec malt, I try and use all of their spec malt. I find it's great. That light chocolate gives you nice sort of chocolate notes without getting too roasty or coffee-like. It's a sweet stout, so fair whack of lactose in there. The Eclipse wheat, I had some there. I don't usually use it in my sweet stout recipe, but I wanted this to be black. I wanted it to look real dark. That's just to help that along. Roasted barley. I have done versions of this, my normal milk stout recipe without that roasted barley before, and I find it just lacks a bit of depth and punch. That roasted barley, does add that sort of not burnt or astringent sort of flavour, only a small percentage, only 3%, but it gives you that sort of that kick and takes it to the next level, I think. And the Shepherd's Delight, yes, they're a really small amount. That's meant to give you some sort of some like dark fruit, stone fruity sort of flavour. So I was hoping that would give the impression of some sort of cherry and help that along as well.
Nice. Okay, so from the hops perspective, just 20 grams of Magnum, 60 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, it's not about the hops here, just enough to bitter it.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
jumping down to the miscellaneous. So we'll get to the water profile in a moment. So let's talk about, we're going to go through a little bit more in detail of the Brewday about the additions and how long and what temperatures, etc. But let's have you run through the kind of the additions here. So maybe starting off at maybe the vanilla.
Yeah, so vanilla, I just use a couple of teaspoons of I think it's a Queen's Madagascan vanilla extract. Obviously that. I wouldn't say that this is a pastry stout. I didn't want it to be like overly sweet or still want it to be a drinkable sort of milk stout, but with those cherry and coconut flavors. So vanilla to sort of help that along, I guess.
So here on the, just a question then on the Brewfather, it says 0 minute during the boil, but did you actually use the vanilla during the boil, or that's?
Yeah, no, that's a mistake. That was all of that stuff's in secondary.
Secondary, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
show in a sec.
Yeah, we'll modify that.
And then, the toasted coconut. So half a kilo toasted coconut, just toasted in the oven, but we'll get to that as well. And the cherry. So I used a kilo of sour. This is just frozen cherries that I got from the Farmer Jack. So a kilo of frozen sour cherries and a kilo of sweet cherries. So in that imperial cherry stout that I did, that was used 4 kilos of sour cherries, and it was tart, like it tasted like a sour stout. So I did want some of that tartness there, but I wanted it to be balanced out by some sweetness as well. So that's why I went with a kilo of each.
Fantastic. So let's jump straight down to the water profile. So obviously RO water here. The profile just says adjusted. So can you run us through maybe the considerations for this style and what you've kind of come up with here?
Yeah, so just chloride heavy to try and help out with that mouthfeel and give you some more body and amplify that sort of malt character and malt sweetness. Okay,
and then the mash in, which the mash temperature we can get to, and the fermentation profile. Starting off at 80 degrees for 5 days. Do you want to just talk a little bit briefly about that?
Yeah, that's just the standard sort of ale profile that I use. But with Nottingham, it's such a beast. I think this is done fermenting in like 4 days. So I think, yeah, that was the profile that I usually run with. But it fermented so quick, I think it's day 3 or something, I would have started bumping it up to 22, just to help it along and help it attenuate.
Did you do anything to the yeast, like rehydrate or just
No,
straight
two
to-
packs pitch. Yeah.
And the water pH there is showing as 5.53. That's kind of where you like to mash in. Are you happy with that for your mash?
Yeah, yeah, around the 5.4 sort of mark. But yeah, I think with Brewfather a couple of times in the past it has sort of overestimated the mash pH, especially when you're using dark malt. So I'm a bit lazy. I don't really measure my mash pH on brew days. My pH meter is a bit of a pain in the ass to use. So I shoot on the high side a little bit just to be safe.
Yep.
So yeah, I usually aim at 5.4, but with the roasted malts and stuff, I aimed at 5.5 just to be safe.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's appreciate you running through that. Let's get across to the clips of the Brewday and let's taste the beer.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we can pause there. That's good. Let me just stop. Okay, so that's a cool shot that we wanted to use. It gives us a good idea of like the different kind of grains we're using in this particular recipe. By we, I mean Dan. So clip number 2. So this is you mashing in. So this is a Brewzilla. I see you using a bag here. So is this something you use on every brew, or what's the reasoning for the bag, Dan?
Yeah, so I've got the 35 and the 65 Brewzilla. I find the 65, the grain tube and the false bottoms and stuff sit like super flush, and my 35, I think it's one of the first version 3s, and the false bottom doesn't sit super flush, so I was getting a fair bit of grain and crap get through. And also with the bigger grain bill, so it's almost 6 kilo of grain or something like that. So that I find when you're trying to hit like 3 liters or a 3 to 1 like grain to water ratio, that's starting to max out the grain tube. So you get close to the holes in where your handle goes in. So
Yep.
the grain bag sort of gets rid of that, and the pipe in the middle pisses me off as well.
yeah, it does a little bit of me as well. Let's jump straight into to pre-boil gravity. You can see here it's you look like you got, I think, what did you get, like 1051 on that pre-boil, something like that?
Yep. Yeah, so that would have been pre-lactose as well.
Yep, and then the post-boil 1063,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep. Yeah, so I think a point off what I was
So
chasing, but
that's including the lactose already, right?
lactose, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, one thing I didn't account for is any sugars added by the cherries and the coconut. So it probably is more than 6. So it's calculated 5.6%, but it's probably 6 plus.
Okay, cool. Okay, so adding the coconut here, I see you split it across 3 different trays. This is, of course, unsweetened coconut. So this is, you can see on screen here, this is, I think it was a little less kind of than what we've done it in the past. So can you run us through, how you prepare this and what you're kind of shooting for in the end result?
Yeah, this is actually the first time I've used coconut and toasted coconut. So I just didn't want to take it too far. I have heard of guys saying that it goes from lightly brown to burnt really quick. So I had the oven at about 120 degrees, so I kept it fairly low, and was just shooting for sort of low end golden.
So kind of putting it in there and then like checking it every couple of minutes, kind of turning it around, making sure it's all kind of even.
Yeah, it was probably 20-25 minutes at 120. But yeah, checking it really often and stirring it quite often.
So we might get a chance to talk about this after, but when did you, this was in hop socks, was it? The coconut?
Yeah, just paint strainer bags from Bunnings.
Nice.
Yeah, got a couple of those.
And you added this the same time as the cherries or earlier?
Yeah, so everything, all of the adjuncts were just in the secondary and transferred onto all of the adjuncts. So
Okay.
A couple bags of coconuts and then the cherries and the vanilla all in secondary and then transferred onto that.
Okay, so let's jump into the cherry. We can see on screen our windows are covering it, but you've got some sweet cherries, some sour cherries. Tell us a bit about the preparation for that.
Yeah, so just into the plastic container that I used, that sanitized, obviously, sprayed with staff sand, and chucked in and just blitzed up with a stick blender. I took it out of the freezer probably an hour beforehand just to thaw it out a little bit, and then just blend it up and chucked in.
Yep, cool, excellent. Okay, so we can see here you're transferring. You've got 2 Fermzillas. You're obviously putting the cherries into the secondary. Are you purging the second Fermzilla before you kind of add that?
No, so I didn't. I made sure the dip tube was right at the bottom, like sort of in the cherries, and started it off at really slow to sort of minimize any splashing. But I figured that with secondary fermentation, it's going to chew through some of the sugars in the cherries. So any oxygen that's introduced, which would be pretty minimal anyway, would get rid of any oxygen that's introduced at that stage.
So what temperature is the wort in the primary at this point? Is it still kind of quite high or?
Yeah, so that'd be at 22.
22 degrees. Okay, cool. So moving on to the actual transfer. So this is going in kind of a little bit fast motion. So you've put the cherries in. You put the lid on the secondary. Did you purge then, or did you just transfer straight in, or?
Yeah, just transferred in.
Okay.
Because obviously you're introducing CO2 as it's transferring in, so that'll be displacing anything coming out.
Okay.
And then I don't know if that was just releasing the pressure valve or.
Gotcha. So for those who don't have a secondary, there's probably a lot of people that might want to try something like this that has a primary. You think it's critical? You think it's something that you should certainly. What's aside from kind of the limited oxygen and so on? Is this something you reckon you could achieve on a single fermenter?
I just thought that the hassle and sort of having your fermenter open so long to chuck all the adjuncts in, and I also thought with the coconut, because obviously it's quite light. If you just chucked it on top, you'd have to do something to try and submerge it and get the wort through it.
Yep.
So I figured it would just be easier to chuck that in the bottom and then put the cherries on top to try and weigh it down a little bit, and then put the wort on top of that, so you get sort of even distribution and get it all wet and getting it added in there.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. So after this is transferred, it's back in the fermenter for how long?
I think it was at 22 for 4 or 5 days. Further on top of that, and then cold crashed for 3 before I transferred into keg.
So on the Brewfather says final gravity 1020. Was it actually 1020? Is that the final?
Yeah, it was
gravity?
1020. Yep.
1020.
Yep.
Excellent. I mean, one of the things I've noticed with trying to add like coconut and stuff, did you lose much liquid kind of coming out of the secondary into the keg?
No, with the cherry volume and coconut, I think it was 24 litres or something in the secondary. And filled the keg pretty comfortably. Nice. I think I got 18.5 litres in there. Excellent.
So I think let's come to the favourite part of the Brewday. Let's get this in a glass and let's get it tasted. Okay. Cheers, Dan. Thanks for the recipe. Thanks for the beer. I'm keen to get this tasted. So, what's your first impressions on the colour?
Very good color, completely dark. On the head, you can see a little bit of the sort of the cherry hue on the color, slightly pink. Probably hard to see on the camera, but you can see a little bit like pink
tinges in there, isn't it? Yeah. So on the nose.
I've already sipped.
You see it. I'm keen. I'm salivating. Yeah, you're right. Actually, like in the light, you get that little bit of a hint on the head, don't you?
And then,
what do you get on the nose, Dan?
I'll let you guys go first. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, I thought the coconut was strong first, but then when I had the second Smell, I think
You get a tiny dash of it. You know, I get a lot of like malt, obviously.
And all the cherries coming through a little bit on the up front.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coconut is a little bit behind, and then the vanilla as well is there, but a little bit on the back.
On the back side, yeah, back seat, yeah. What about you, Dan?
I feel like the coconut on a lot of coconut beers comes out when it's a bit warmer. I don't know what temp you've got yours at. I've just
so this one is
out.
quite cold.
It is quite cold, yeah. We probably should have taken it out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I reckon you'll probably see that change as it warms up a bit.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, I think this is about 3 weeks old now. The first week, the coconut was super prominent, and it's starting to back off a bit now, and the cherries coming through. Before, it was just coconut on the nose, and you could get cherry in the taste, but the coconut was super prominent. But yeah, it's starting to balance out a bit more now.
Let's dive right in. I'm keen. Cheers, everybody. Oh man, compared to the aroma, man, like that coconut and the cherries is popping, man. I think that's fantastic. I'm referencing based on the previous kind of cherry beer that I tasted, you know, and this for me is fantastically balanced with the with the malt.
I think you did well using a bit of the sweet cherries as well, because it's not super tart, but you still have a bit of tartness, but then you have the sweet cherries, you know, which complements the malt, which is fantastic. I think that the base malt is very good in this
coconuts
beer.
there as well. Even like I don't know if like it's hard not to be swayed by, you know, like knowing it's vanilla in there and like kind of subconsciously searching for it amongst other flavors. But I get a little bit of vanilla at the background.
Yeah.
What yourself?
Yeah, me too. I think the vanilla it's here to complement, but it's not trying to take anything over, you know. Yeah,
that's a nice beer, man. what did that up for? Like 5.6%.
Yeah, probably around this. Yeah, with the cherries around that 6% mark,
which I think is quite hard to get that. I mean, there's a bit of body in there as well too, right? Like that 5.8% is tastes like some of the other 7-8% beers that I've tasted. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I guess there's a few things that I've done there to try and give that body an impression that it's bigger than it is, with the oats, the lactose obviously being a sweet stout, and then the water profile as well being chloride heavy. That sort of gives you that sweetness and that fullness as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, great job. I think that the it might be the cherries. The cherries cut through the sweetness. And it doesn't feel like cloying or anything, and actually it's quite drinkable. It doesn't, like when you see like a Final Gravity 1020, you go, oh, it might be too sweet, but this one doesn't feel like 1020. It's like drinking very nice.
A little too nice, man. I think we tasted a beer on the channel that reminds me of that 13.2% kind of octopus one, not in like in the body or the alcohol, but like that. How you kind of place the cherry in there, I think is fantastically done. Like it's not overpowering the malt. You still get that kind of malt backbone, right? But it's like you're not searching for it. It's like it's right there, kind of really, really well balanced. I think anyway.
Yeah, I really like those big sort of dessert stouts that are around the 10-12% mark. But when you've only got a keezer with 4 taps, you don't really want a 10-12% beer tying up a tap for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So I wanted something that is drinkable, that you can still have like 2-3 pints of, but still sort of scratches that itch of having a nice sort of sweet desserty sort of beer, but still something that you can still drink a few of.
That's the key. I've only got 2 kegs here, and like I haven't quite hit that point, you know. So I'm always searching out these big stouts, and then like you have 1 or 2 of them, and you're like, oh man, what can I do here? So something that's like a little like lower on the ABV, but still got the, like you say, that impression of that kind of that bigger body and that kind of malt complexity and that kind of pastry-ish kind of stout. I think it's fantastic. That's a great beer. I think if you haven't tried this type of style, I think you should certainly get out there and give it a crack. It's a fantastic recipe to try. So let's.
Anything would you change, or you're gonna brew this beer again? Exactly the same.
I think it's pretty good. I don't think there would be much that I would change, to be honest. I didn't actually use any cacao or chocolate in there. What do you guys think of the chocolate character? Because I I have used cacao in the past and have felt that, especially after a few months, you sort of start to get some vegetal character from it. So I was going to put cacao in this. I chose not to in the end, and just relied on the
you do
chocolate malt front.
you do get a little bit of chocolate. The recipe actually kind of reminds your pastry stout, the one. Yeah, we did the video recently.
Yep.
It's not like huge chocolate. We didn't use any. Did you use it? No, we didn't use it.
No cocoa nibs. No.
Yeah, and then the base beer is just nice, and you do get a little bit of chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you got here, like you know, obviously you could experiment, of course, but I think what you got here is a cherry ripe stout. Like it's I guess you could probably. From what I understand of it, like you could probably add some chocolate, it might complement, but I think you are getting some chocolate character, right? Like
I'm trying to warm up the beer a little bit, and as I'm warming up, I'm just like hitting my hands here and trying to get a little bit warm. You get a lot more coconut as it warms up.
Yeah, for sure.
This is great. I'm mindful of time, and hopefully this won't be the last brew day we do with Dan. So Dan, thanks very much for joining, sharing the recipe, running through the brew day, and throwing us a bottle to taste. So appreciate your time, and let's do it again soon. So like every video, guys, we do loads. We've got loads of different brew days coming. We've got brewery interviews. We've got some more kind of probably hazy beer reviews. Probably a few too many hazy beer reviews, but we've got loads of brew days coming. So if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. Thank you, Dan, for joining once again, and see you guys next time.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.